The thoughts, views, and comments expressed by Sidebar, its guests, callers, and advisors are not necessarily those of the management, ownership, or production unit of ILS Verizon Media Group. Sidebar, a 103.5 The Beat podcast, is a production of ILTV Studios and may not be reproduced or represented, in part or in its entirety, without the express written consent of Verizon Media Group. Sidebar is the intellectual property of Verizon Media Group. Copyright 2024. All rights reserved.
Welcome to Sidebar, 103 The Beat podcast, powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today I'm outside, and it's the wonderful joy of being able to shoot and have these conversations with you anywhere, and the conversation about whatever I want to have. Hopefully it doesn't rain soon, but if it does, we'll just relocate, and that's fine. I have the freedom to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and I feel like as election season approaches, everybody's like, oh, let's all talk about politics. But for what? You know, what are we bringing to the table that's new and different? What are we actually saying that's going to change anything? So I don't actually want to talk about politics. What I would like to talk to you about is picking the right character in Street Fighter 2 for the Sega Genesis, because I have the freedom to do that. While there are arguments to be made about picking exotic characters like Blanca, who can do the furball thing where he rolls up in a circle and bounces off of people and he can electrocute people, the backstory to how he got that power is rather depressing. And like, would you want to have to go through that just to get to where you want to go if there's another way to get there? The same thing with Vega. Vega is a trouble character because, so the thing that they wouldn't tell us is Vega is of a different orientation than the other characters. And so that's why he's obsessed with his beauty and his face and all that stuff. But he's not accepted for who he is. And once again, it's not to say that there isn't something interesting about that character and his struggles or whatever, but would you choose to have to go through this additional thing just to get the power that you need to move forward? When you're picking a character, right? And then you have powerful characters like M. Bison and Sagat, right? Where they are the final bosses in the game. So they already are very powerful characters. And their special abilities are interesting, but their hearts are dark and corrupt. And I think even when it comes to playing a game, when you're picking a character to take you to where you want to go, do you really want to pick somebody who, when you look at their history, wow, this person is a dark, concerning figure. They have done some things in their past that are questionable, and the fact that they now are wearing a suit and shades and they're spitting a good game, is that enough to hand them over the keys to tell your story? My suggestion would be, no, it's not even my suggestion. I think that the average person, unaware, they don't know anything about the game, they're going to pick between Ken and Ryu. And I'm going to say Ryu because that's the Bahamian way to say it. That's the way I grew up saying it. I know that it's Ryu, but my tongue keeps slipping back into Ryu. So for the sake of this conversation, Ken and Ryu. Why am I saying Ken first? It's Ryu and Ken. Anyway, the average person is going to pick Ryu or Ken because they're the default characters. When you're playing the game in story mode, you meet Ryu first. So you have to beat Ryu to even get to fight the other more exotic characters, the characters with different powers and different capabilities. And so this is what you are exposed to. The criticism that we often hear about Ken and Ryu, or Ryu and Ken, is that they're the same person. Both of them have names that are just 3 letters, right? And Ryu is the original, that was the first one, but Ken seems to be a knockoff of Ryu. Ken and Ryu, they dress the same, they move the same, they act the same, and unless you're watching a cartoon made in the 90s, they pretty much talk the same. It's the same character, the only real difference between Ken and Ryu to the uninitiated is that, and this is if you don't have the booklet to read the backstory, Ryu is the first character that you encounter in story mode. He's the main character in the grand scheme of things for the Street Fighter series, but Ken wears red. Ken, and you hear it all the time, Bahamas are always saying, the only difference between the two of them is that one of them is red. And so you have Ken, who, when you've chosen the character of Ken, a lot of times what ends up happening is you're doing the exact same moves, right? So you block the same, you do the same Shuriken, Hadouken, all of your moves are the same moves. Ken does exactly the same moves that Ryu does, and the main difference is that Ken wears red. Now, I understand why people will say, I'm still going to pick Ken or Ryu. And my argument would never be, don't pick Ken or Ryu. My argument would be you justifying why you would pick who you pick between the two of those. It would be ridiculous to argue that Ken is a better fighter than Ryu because in, let's say, Street Fighter 1 and 3, he is slightly stronger than Ryu. The main difference is an aesthetic difference. There is no true spiritual difference if you have never sat down and let Ryu and Ken tell you the story between Ryu and Ken. And the reason is because based on your resources and what is available to you, there's only so much that you can do. Ken can come to you and tell you, let me fight for you. I'm going to change the way things are. I can make life better for you. But Ken only has available A, B, and C, up, down, left, right. He can block, he can punch. If you're really quick, he can throw a fireball. But at the end of the day, Ken and Ryu have the same resources available to them and the same moves available to them. Because Ken and Ryu aren't in an exhibition match against a shadow puppet. They're fighting against the world. It's the Street Fighter World Tournament. They're traveling around the world, and different characters from all around the world present different challenges to them. They're different stages and they're different stuff, but at the end of the day, they all only have the same tools at their disposal because there's only one country and there's only so much you can do. Of course, I'm talking about Street Fighter 2, and I'm not talking about anything else. And anybody who thinks that by me saying Ryu and Ken are the exact same creature to, not exact same. One has blonde hair and one has black hair. That they are similar creatures based on what is available for them to do in the real world. How can they attack problems? How can they address challenges? That it is limited. Anybody who reads it deeper than that, that's on them. I just wanted to talk about Street Fighter. But on a completely different note, what I would like to do when we come back from this break, I'd like to talk to you about the government. I think I want to talk to you about the government. Anyway, let's take a quick break. I've already gone over time. This is Sidebar 103 Podcast, powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
numbers. $1 million. Every 3 days, a number is revealed. Act fast. Your million is waiting.
Crack that code when $1 million clear.
Crack the code before the last lock clicks shut. Get ready to join the winner's circle only at islandluck.com.
Crack the code and win $1 million.
Welcome back to Sidebar, 103 to B podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. Today we're talking about, well, we started talking about Street Fighter, but we're going to talk about the government. And that's like a capital G government, not individual. Actually, you know what? No, we're talking about the political process and governments in general. Because I don't feel like we actually, when we say government, we say it in such a weird, almost spiritual way that we've separated ourselves from them. And we say us and them as though they don't come out of us. It's easy to complain about the quality of governance that you get when you're able to say, well, that's not me. But the truth is, it would be very difficult to find a Bahamian who exists today that was not at some point in recent history related to a member of parliament. You got there either between 39 or 40 of them, and every 5 years we switch out a couple, right? That alone, and the fact that most of us are already cousins anyway, you've probably been related to them. These are people who've gone to your churches and your schools, and your father knew them, your mother knew them, your sister knew them. They grew up with you. They are products of this environment. All of the tools that they have were given to them by us, by the Bahamas. Culturally, they are Bahamians. You can't really win a seat in the Bahamas if you are not on some level, at least culturally Bahamian, right? A passport is necessary for the technical aspect of running, but for the aspect of winning, you need to be on some level culturally Bahamian. And they're coming from us, but we separate ourselves. And the separation of us from them is helpful to us because, hey, at the end of the day, they have access to exactly what they have access to, right? And we're gonna circle back to that. But if the money in the treasury is for infrastructure and to pay salaries and improvements and investments and this and that, there's only so much money, right? If you were to reduce it down to a household of people and it was 11 people in a house and there's $10 in the house a week and you have to make the $10 work, you spend the $10 on the most vital thing first. And the reason why you only have $10 is because we've already paid rent and you paid for electricity and you paid for running water. Like, these are the things that are necessary for survival on a day-to-day basis. And now you only have $10 and you have to buy food. And so now it's like, well, what's the quality of food can we get for $10? So that's the position that governments find themselves in. And that might sound like I am beating the drum for a particular government, but all governments, no matter who or which party they subscribe to, or ascribe to, or whatever scribe to, they are going to find themselves in that position. There's only so much here. The biggest check is paying government workers. And while we might have this idea, once again, separating ourselves from the government and government workers, we say, oh, the people in the passport office is one way, the people at road traffic is one way, the people over here is this way, and they lousy, and they go on to lunch. We can say whatever we want to say, but part of that check goes to teachers, part of that check goes to police officers, part of that check goes to doctors and nurses, and part of that check goes to contractors who are picking up your garbage on a weekly basis. At the end of the day, the money, the bulk of the money is being spent to pay people for the work that they do. I don't think that anybody can argue that if you do work, even if your work is just okay, but in some cases the work is great, it's excellent. Sometimes it's but even if it's mediocre work, if you're working and it is helping to keep things up and afloat, you should be paid. And if you were to stop paying people just so that you could, I don't know, build an overpass or some weird crazy idea or whatever, right? People would lose their mind. And rightfully so, because what are you building this monstrosity for if people have not been paid? I say all that to say, that is what most governments, when they get into office, day one or day 523, they find themselves in. This is how much money we have, and these are the bills that we need to take care of. And some of these are recurring bills. But we have the privilege of separating ourselves from them and saying, they aren't doing this. So let's just assume for a moment that government and elected officials, and government is made up of not just elected officials, but also appointed officials and persons who work their way up through the ranks. But we know that when you say government, what you really mean is just elected officials. Nobody's thinking about judges as a part of the government, even though the legislative branch is a part of the government. No one's thinking, you only think about the executive, judges are the judiciary. You only think about the legislative and the executive branch, which is parliament and cabinet. You don't really sit down, and I guess the governor general, but you really don't think about the judiciary and that part of the government. You don't think about the part that the police play in the government. These are parts of the different branches of the government helping to, because the only responsibility of the government is really, let's figure out laws to make the country work as best as possible. You're talking about elected officials. So let's pretend for a second that every elected official is a horrible, horrible, evil, corrupt individual. Let us pretend. It's not true, but let's pretend. If that is so, and one of the criteria for you to even be allowed to run as a MP in any area is that you must be a Bahamian of a certain age. Who is that an indictment of? If we have had, and once again, I don't think so, and there may have been a time where I would have had a very different idea, but as I've gotten older and I sat down and you realize, oh, that is, okay, now I understand, because you don't understand how things work, because the people who know how things work don't have enough time to explain it, and the people who, either they don't have enough time to explain it, or they utilize your ignorance of it to mislead you. So I was one of those people who were like, well, where the VAT money gone? And then you realize, oh, the VAT money went where all money goes, which is into the consolidated fund, and the consolidated fund pays out government employees first. If payday came and government workers did not get paid, the country would collapse, because all these government workers who renting, and these landlords who only have a piece of property because they Grammy dead, and they are renting their Grammy house, and they're hoping for that $800 to $2,000 to come in from this government worker who was on the side of the road sweeping dirt or pushing papers in the office or doing something. If that person don't get paid, then the other person don't get paid. And now none of us have money to go to the gas station. And none of us have money to go to the food store. The whole thing collapses. If there's no money to go to the gas station, all the gas station workers get laid off. If there's no money to go to the food store, then the food store people gotta get let go, right? And so now the more people that are unemployed, once again, less people spending money in the economy. Our economy is built a very fragile ecosystem that requires everybody to constantly be spending money. Because if one solid group of people stop spending money, the whole thing is going to start wobbling very violently. And if two groups of people stop spending money, it's going to collapse. It's a very fragile ecosystem. I say that to say, if we are to believe that government officials have been evil and corrupt, not just recently and not just in the past 20 years, but for all of time, who is that an indictment of? Because we're picking them from ourselves. We sat down and said, this is the best person to represent my needs in Parliament for 52 years. Are you telling me the majority of them have always been bad and evil and corrupt? No, that doesn't make sense. I mean, and if it is true, then it's an indictment against me and you. That means our society is so evil and corrupt that we could not ever get it right. I think that it's not even a more complicated issue or problem than that. I think it is just a harder thing to say. I think the harder thing to say is that the responsibility for a lot of things that are going wrong in society do not rest on the shoulders of elected officials. I know we would like to believe that, and I know we hate to hear when they say it, because you'll hear it when it's not an election year, right? That, okay, and you hear it always with murder and crime, because most crime, not every single one, but most crime is an outgrowth of poverty, right? People thief in your car because they are better at thieving cars than getting a 9-to-5 office job, and those jobs aren't available to them, or they do not have. That's an outgrowth of poverty. People getting mad enough to kill somebody over $10 is an outgrowth of money is such a scarce commodity that you taking this thing from me, people willing to kill each other so that they could own this little piece of corner to sell drugs on, or to jump in this boat and ride down the ocean to get drugs, risk their life, risk their family life, risk the lives of numerous people, maybe kill some people on the way. That's an outgrowth of, and you may say the people at the top are super rich, but the people in the boats, they just trying to make some money, right? And I may be oversimplifying things, but I don't think that anybody would risk their life if there is an opportunity for them that would make them the same amount of money to live, and it wouldn't be as hard. I'm not going to go and put myself in danger and my family in danger and my freedom in danger if there's an opportunity for me where I don't have to do all of that, right? Unless, I'm a thrill-seeking lunatic who has other issues that need to be addressed through therapy. So we have this issue of poverty. And so when people say, oh, well, murder and crime, it needs to be addressed through the community and such, right? They'll say that in a non-election year when election isn't close by. But then as election comes by, it becomes a political issue. So let's pretend it's not close to election right now. What do they mean that it is an issue that the community needs to deal with, right? And it's like, it's true, this community needs an injection, it needs investment, it needs help. But unfortunately, what they get is somebody passing the buck and saying, oh, this is all your fault because you guys didn't graduate school yet. But really what they're saying is, you're poor. And it's your fault that you're poor. And your poverty is the reason why you're in this position. And you poor people keep killing each other. You should stop killing each other and just go make money and live in a better situation. And some people are able to sacrifice and move themselves out of the ghetto. And other people can't because the opportunity isn't afforded them. They don't have the luck. But if all of crime and all of these issues have to do with community, where does that then leave us? Like, do we still turn around and say, this is the government fault, that this isn't happening and that isn't happening? And I think the reason why it's so tempting to do that, as opposed to actually sitting down and listening to what people who their only job is to study and figure out, well, why is this crime happening? Why are these circumstances happening? It's because it gives us the opportunity ourselves, the same way somebody will pass the buck off and say, well, those people murder because they're poor. We don't look at ourselves as a part of that community. We're also able to say they. If we believe that murder is so horrible, what are we doing to prevent it? Because the MP for 5,000 people in a quote-unquote inner city cannot police the 5,000 voters in the inner city, let alone the additional people who are living there, who are not voters, who may be a young child with access to a weapon or being seduced to a life of crime because he could finally make enough money to help him when we move out of the ghetto, right? What are we doing? We have separated ourselves and saying they as opposed to us. We separated ourselves from the government, or we blame everything on the government, when the government's only job is to write legislation and enforce it. We separated ourselves from, well, those people who commit crimes. And the truth is, if you really were to open it up, we really only care about the big crimes. Crime is down. That's just what the numbers say. It is what it is. You don't have to believe it, but that's what it is. If we really cared about crime, we would not run stoplights because, I mean, that's a crime too. But we're not counting those crimes. We're counting other people's crime, right? And so we're able to separate ourselves and say, well, we're good and they're bad. And this all gives us this sense of self-righteousness and this, oh, well, we're doing the right thing and we'd be further along if only blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, the same way that the politicians are an outgrowth of the general Bahamian community, the people who we look at as derelicts and criminals and vagrants and vagabonds are also an outgrowth of the Bahamian community. Our problem is pronouns. Until we stop saying they and them and look at it as a us issue, we can continue to blame the government and we can continue to lie to ourselves and saying it's because they aren't doing this. And hear me out. Somebody is probably saying to themselves, but the government, they just wear fancy socks and they just fly about and stuff. And you know what? Cool. If you were become a politician and you decided to never fly, and that saves the government, let's say, $10 million in the grand scheme of things, $10 million is not, we spend way more than that just paying everybody. Like, that is a drop in the bucket. In order to get where we need to go, we need to rethink about how we think about the government. The Senate is not a group of elected officials. That's appointed people. We're not appointing them. Political parties are appointing them. The only people that we're voting for in New Providence, I mean, if you live in Family Islands, you're voting for local government, but that's a whole different topic and discussion. But if you live in New Providence, the only people you're voting for is one single person. You're voting for your MP. You're not voting for the Prime Minister. You're not voting for a senator. You're not voting for a cabinet minister. You're voting for somebody to pick up once a week on Wednesday, go to the House, read the legislation that is being tabled to address issues that exist in the country, and that person to then say, the people in my community are very concerned about the high cost of electricity. How will this bill impact them? Or I see in this bill, it impacts them in this way, X, Y, and Z. This whole thing where we're playing games inside, that's just window dressing. That's the art of theatrics and being a thespian, where you go out and and that's not a dig at any one particular side. That's all sides, including, like, even persons who are fringe parties are doing it. Whereas, like, if I get the attention of the media, then I get screen time, I get airtime and stuff. You're not actually trying to address the problems. The way that you address the problem is through legislation and enforcement. You figure out what is on the books. We have laws on the books that are sufficient. We need people to enforce them. They are possibly not enforced, and I know I'm going over time. Give me a second, all right? The laws are not being enforced because although it would be a great thing for them to be enforced, it is going to impact all men equally. And some of those people don't want to be impacted. I will give you an example. Real property tax is a more progressive tax than VAT. You have to give the Prime Minister props for adjusting VAT, because a broke person like me, I buy a loaf of bread for almost $5, I gotta pay VAT on that. A rich person, like insert name here, they buy the same loaf of bread, or they hire somebody to buy them a loaf of bread because they so rich they don't go in the food store and you will never see them in the food store, and they pay the same VAT on the same piece of bread. The percentage of my income that 50 cents, if bread is $5, I haven't eaten a loaf of bread in a while. The 50 cents that I pay for the bread to VAT, that I donate, that I give as a part of the general project of the Bahamas to make sure that teachers have a salary and that the roads can be fixed and that we have police officers to help protect us when we need them, and that their cars are working and that there are ambulances inside New Providence, right? The percentage of my income that 50 cents is far larger than somebody who is a multi-millionaire. It's so insignificant that I don't even know what you'd call it. A thousandth, a tenth, a millionth. It's negligible to what they make. It is negligible to what they have and what they have access to. Everything that the government does via tax is revenue. The revenue is used to pay the employees and build schools and hospitals and roads and everything that you want and everything that you say that you need and all the infrastructure that you want. The government then needs more money for things to happen. How can the government get more money? Well, you need new taxes or other taxes. You have a real property tax. Real property tax does not impact me as a person who is renting. Real property tax does not impact somebody who living with their Grammy. Real property tax will not impact us directly, all things considered, assuming the people aren't evil dogs. But real property tax is for anybody who owns a piece of property that is over $250,000 worth if you're living in it. You don't pay it on the family islands if you're Bahamian, but if you own a piece of property, house and land, let's say it's $300,000, then you're supposed to pay real property tax on it. I don't think the Inland Revenue is sending persons around door to door and say, this neighborhood, there's not a single house in this neighborhood worth less than $500,000. And I don't see, can you show us your receipt to show that you paid real property tax in the past 12 months? That's not happening, all right? If you own a commercial property, you're supposed to pay real property tax on it, whatever the price of it is. So if you run a business, a part of the cost of doing business is, unless it's a home-based business, you're supposed to pay real property tax on the property. If you're renting, that means it's an income-generating property. You're supposed to pay real property tax. There's so many different things where it's like, and this is just one of the many taxes that are already on the books, that more or less it's voluntary. Because somebody would have to hate you for you to get called up and be like, oh yeah, you owe us back tax this much. That doesn't happen, but it should. But who all would that affect? It wouldn't just impact one political party. I dare say it would impact all political parties, including the fringe ones, if you ask them, hey, are you paying real property tax? Could you show me the last time you paid real property tax? Then you're no different than the people who you complain about squatting on Bahamian land if you ain't paying, because you ain't paying for it. Like, the whole point is, for us to be better, we have to be better. It is not the responsibility of somebody else to make us better. It is our responsibility to make ourselves better. I've gone completely over time. I'm going to take a break. We're going to come right back. This is Sidebar 103B Podcast on ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Paradise Premium Foods, where exceptional taste meets everyday convenience. Right in the heart of Hurricane Hole Plaza, whether you're planning a beachside brunch, an intimate dinner, or simply restocking your favorites, we offer only the finest selection of local and imported goods, handpicked for quality, freshness, and flavor. At Paradise Premium Foods, shopping is effortless, service is personal, and every visit feels like a treat. From gourmet meals to go to organic essentials and indulgent treats, this is your neighborhood market elevated. Live well, eat better. Discover Paradise Premium Foods, now open at Hurricane Hole Plaza, Paradise Island. Paradise Premium Foods, taste the difference.
Edenwell has expanded their testing menu. We now offer blood work, drug screening, and so much more. Our hours of operation are Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., located on 11 Madera Street. We are here for all of your laboratory needs, with fast and reliable lab work done by our friendly and knowledgeable staff. Let us help you take the needed steps to stay in the know about your health. Let's keep working towards a healthier you. Stay Eden well.
Welcome back to Sidebar 103B Podcast, powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna, and sorry I had to move inside because during the last commercial break it started to rain. But that's okay. We are talking about how to pick a character in Street Fighter 2 for the Sega Genesis, and I guess to some extent, governments and what governments are. I think that one of the biggest issues in the Bahamas is that we look at governments not as an outgrowth of general society. Matter of fact, we don't even look at them as an outgrowth or an extension of institutions that have existed for, at the very least, if you don't want to link them to colonialism, for 52 years. We look at them as these are outgrowths of political parties. We say, okay, that's the PLP government, that's the FNM government, and we label them as such, and they become these political party ideas. And that's problematic because once a person is in government, they no longer represent, or they should not represent, the interests of only the select few people in their civic organization, because that's what political parties essentially are. Right? These are private organizations. These are clubs. These are membership things. All right? So you could say whatever you want to say, you love them or hate them. At the end of the day, they are not actual governments. They're just a group of people who happen to be in government. They now are supposed to represent the needs and the wants and the goals of Bahamian society. All of us who are a part of this massive undertaking that is the Bahamas. But we don't look at it like that. And I think part of the problem is, and this is going to sound silly, but part of the problem is we don't have enough local sports or the same level of attention given to local sports. If you could get that, I think it will take some of the pressure off of politics. So we have local sports teams. We have a men's league, a women's league, softball, baseball, basketball. We have high school stuff, but we don't have the coverage of them. We don't have the ability to follow them. So only people who are closely connected to them know, oh, this person is the best softball player in Long Island, or this person is the best basketball player in Angliston, but you have to be from Angliston and related to that person to know that, because how else would you know? But if we had actual leagues that had the same level of support that, I don't even want to say the NFL, like how Canadian football is a thing. We might not watch it, but it's a thing, it exists, and Canadians watch it. We might not watch NHL, but NHL is a thing. Florida has an ice hockey team. I'm not suggesting that we join their league. I'm saying that if we had that level of passion where a person could look at a team and say, yes, that represents me, that's going to take some of this tribalism pressure off of other things and unite us in different ways and build us in different ways. So instead, we treat politics like team sports. And what happens when LeBron wins a championship? You spend the entire year hating on him if you hate LeBron. Because you hate him, you hate his team, and hate Cleveland. And worse, don't let he join the Lakers? I never liked the Lakers. You spend all the time hating on them, hoping for the downfall. And you would never say, well, I wonder what the Lakers are doing inside Oakland. Oh, I wonder what the Lakers are. I heard they did a food kitchen drive, and you don't care about that. You want the Lakers to fail because they're not your team. Even if you lived in LA, you hate them. For us, there are times when both political parties have done things that have been good. And it hurts you to say so. It hurts you to participate and encourage in anything. You would rather say, this is what's wrong with it. This is why they are the wrong choice. And let's nitpick at what they did. That's a good start, but this is something that we did when we were in power. Or, anybody could say that, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, these complaints, they help your team fans to say, yeah, applaud, but it makes everybody else who isn't looking at it as a team sport say, what did that do? How did that move the conversation forward? That is me talking directly to the political parties, but also for persons who have begun to treat, you're not even a card-carrying member of either party. either the real party is or a card carrying member of the fringe party. You've not signed up. You've not said, what are your ideologies and goals? What do you actually hope to achieve? You have an idea of it. But I dare say the average person who supports any political party at any point in Bahamian history had no idea about the core goals and values of any of these parties. Some of these parties are good in terms of what they want to achieve. Some of these parties have no goal other than to become the government. And all of that is a problem, because if we're treating it like a sports team, we are going to fail because it's not a sports team. The Bahamas is a group project. And the group project, basically, we all sat down and we said, we're going to send that person, that person, and that person. They're the best writers. They're going to type it up, and they're going to do this, and they're going to print it, and they're going to find the decoration, and they're going to find the props, and when we do this presentation will be crazy. But we're not participating in it. We're just saying, let the smart people do whatever. And then they do it, and we're not happy with it, and we say, we ain't gonna ever pick y'all again. But it's not just for them. It's also for us to do things. There are things that we need to do and that we can do, and we'll continue to do. All right? Once again, the only purpose of the legislative branch is to deal with laws. The enforcement of laws, even though you may not be a police officer, is going to come from us. Our self-regulation and understanding that the law is that you do not drive your vehicle if you haven't licensed it. You need to pay the tax to license your car, and then you can drive it. Otherwise, you're breaking the law. It is a privilege to drive, all right? So we have to enforce that on ourselves and on our friends and on our family. We say, they don't drive the car, all right? It ain't even just about getting locked up. And if catching the bus is too much, if asking for a ride is too much, that means that you need to hurry up and go license it. Or now you know it needs to be fixed. Public transportation. Public transportation in the Bahamas is abysmal. We need to overhaul the entire thing from top to bottom. I honestly don't know the difference between a livery and a limousine and a taxi at this point. But that is not the point. The point is the jitneys, we need to fix that. Everything needs to fix, all right? And so I'm not suggesting that, relegate yourself to this, but the fact that you cannot afford something means that that needs to be addressed. Everybody should not have to get a car. And the fact that you need to get a car to maintain a job, and getting a car and licensing and insurance and getting insurance for it makes it economically unattainable, financially unfeasible, means that there needs to be another avenue for you so that you can have gainful employment and support yourself and your family. That's not a you fault, but this is a problem that you now know that you can advocate for and that you have an issue with, as opposed to saying the government ain't do nothing for me. So at the very least, in the next year, when people start walking around and saying X, Y, and Z, you can say, but my Grammy is need to go from place to place, and there's nothing for her, there's no way for her to move about. She can't catch the bus because of this issue. There's not enough buses, the buses are too wild, the buses stop running at a certain time. If there was an electronic form of payment, then we reduce the risk of somebody being robbed, and so buses could run later into the night. All these things are things that need to be discussed, and that's where the group project comes in. Because if you don't tell me what you need and what you want, only thing I will do is do whatever I think makes sense to me. And my life and your life may be so different that you like, why would I need helicopters to be duty-free? That's stupid. That don't help me in no way. But you didn't tell me. It wasn't expressed loud enough. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to wrap it up. This is SIDEBAR 103 podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna. We'll be right back.
Crack the code and win $1 million. Crack the code and win $1 million.
7 numbers, $1 million. Every 3 days, a number is revealed. Act fast, your million is waiting.
Crack that code, win $1 million clear.
Crack the code before the last lock clicks shut. Get ready to join the winner's circle only at islandluck.com.
Dollars. Crack the code and win $1 million.
Welcome back to Sidebar 103 podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna, and we had a lot of fun today. You know, we were outside. We talked about Street Fighter 2 for the Sega Genesis. We almost got caught in the ring, and we talked about governance and the part that, you know, all of us should play in it. But what would be the one thing that I would like to leave you with, if I could leave you with anything? Boy. I think hope is the problem. Hope has failed us. And I know that hope is a weapon, and I don't disagree with that sometimes. But also sometimes hope is holding us back. And the reason is because if you have hope that you can fix something, you're not going to abandon it. And we are holding on to things, legacy, horrible things, groups, institutions, ways of doing things that have been destroying us. It's destroyed our grandparents, it's destroyed our parents, it's destroying us, it's destroying our children. And for people like me, godchildren and nieces and nephews. But it is destroying us because we have hope that if we just hold on and we stick it out, that everything's going to be all right. And the truth is that until you abandon hope, you will not see the reality of things and say, I need to make the decision to abandon the things that are holding me back. And because we've been talking about political parties, I need to emphasize, I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form randomly vote for a extreme wannabe generic, what's it called, Kirkland's best version of an alt-right political party. I'm not suggesting that in the least. You cannot just do change for change's sake. But that itself is one of the things that we need to let go of, where every election cycle, we just keep flip-flopping back and forth with no real intention of anything. We don't have any plan. We're just saying things need to change. And yes, things need to change, but they need to change for the better. We need to move forward and not just simply change for the sake of change, because that often leads us in a worse position than where we were. That, honestly, that's kind of rape culture-y to be saying, because you're just happy to have the power to do this massive thing, even though the repercussions of it may impact you. You're just so happy that I can do this thing. I have this control for this moment, and you're drunk on the power. But like, to what extent? And that's the real work is hard. This hope, where we just hold out a little bit longer, it is killing us. All right? The truth is hard. The work is hard. The future can be bright, but it requires us to do some heavy lifting, and not in a metaphoric, once we get the right person in the right seat, then we can make, no. The heavy lifting is, it doesn't matter who's in the seat. We have to do something. If you live in an area where things are horrible, you cannot depend solely on the MP to fix it. If you have a problem and you have the ability to address it on any level, and even if the only level is, let me talk to my neighbors and say, oh, blah, 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 and somebody goes and finds out what is the source of the problem. Let's say you live in an area and there's no electricity, and you say, well, why don't we have electricity? We don't have electricity because X, Y, and Z. There are times where things are happening and falling apart, and no one has actually called the police. People are being robbed, something's on fire, and everybody's just like, wow, this is horrible. One day could come. No one called the police. But no one also reached for a hose. No one did anything. They're just like, well, these people always have fire in the back of the yard, and no one's doing anything about it. Go to your neighbor. Hey, man, I noticed that a lot of cars piling up inside the yard, or the people are throwing old cars inside that abandoned lot over there. People throwing this. There are things that we can do within the neighborhood. I noticed that, oh, all us have a bunch of garbage. You need to get rid of that. Well, it only costs this much to get a big dumpster. So if I put in $5 and you put in $5 and this person, we 10 us, we could pay for this. It wouldn't be $5. I was calling the round numbers. But anyway, it would be significantly less than if each of us had to do it individually. And so that would stop any of us from doing it. But now, if all of us can get together, this becomes a thing that we can do. But you have the hope that if I just wait, somebody could do it. Eventually it'll happen. And then maybe your MP does it once a year. Or they did it early on, but they didn't get a chance to come back and do it again because they had to ask their cousin. And now you're like, oh, you have hope. Man, she did it last time, or he. And they come back and this hope thing is destroying us because it makes us wait for people to do things that they were not hired to do. Hope, I think we forget in the story of Pandora, hope is the last demon in the box. Hope is not always a good thing, all right? You keep saying, you don't want anybody to say, don't say I'm poor. Oh, that's a bad thing. Because you have this hope that if you work hard, that you're going to be rich. And nobody gets rich from working hard. At best, you become middle class from working hard. You will never become rich from working hard. You will never become rich from working hard. They said it twice in case you didn't hear it the first time. That's not how an abundance of anything happens. It just doesn't. There might be a level of preparedness, a level of opportunity, a level of luck, but it is not, and even if you are a hard worker and a rich person, it is not solely off the back of you working hard. That's not how that works. So until you let go of the hope that working hard is going to make you rich, you cannot acknowledge where you actually are to start making the changes that you need to make. I've gone over the time, so I'm going to wrap up. Abandon your hope. Then you can look around and realize, oh, we're in hell now. And then you can start to walk out of it. This has been Sidebar, 103 to Be podcast powered by ILTV. I'm Stephen Hanna, True God Still.
Tired of driving around from place to place just to get your car insured and licensed? Frustrated with the process of being back and forth from your insurance company to road traffic? Well, BMG Insurance Agents and Brokers just made insuring and licensing your motor vehicle as easy as 1, 2, 3. Step 1. Visit us at the Road Traffic Department, Section 1, Thomas A. Robinson Sports Stadium. At our office, you can purchase or renew your insurance or get your vehicle inspected. We at BMG Insurance Agents and Brokers represent major carriers. Step 2. See the professionals at Road Traffic to get your vehicle licensed. Step 3. Enjoy your day. Insure with BMG Insurance Agents and Brokers today, saving you time and money. Your one-stop shop for all of your insurance needs. Great rates, convenient, excellent service. For more information, call us at 322-2221.
So you want a space. But not just any space. You need something with a little more potential. So how about 1,000 square feet of room to play with? Superb audio and video production capability, digital LED wall, full lighting grid, and about 124 seats to accommodate a full studio audience with so many other features. Make us your home for your next concert, conference, and so much more. Honestly, the possibilities are endless. Here at ILTV Studios, we'd love to bring your next event to life. So what do you say? Do you want our space?